So we can do this like very, very informal. Taylor asked us to be here, so thanks Taylor for inviting us to give a Know Your Rights training. As I see it, like super informal questions are, we want you guys to ask questions. We don't necessarily know like 100% of everything about like how to deal with police and all that kind of stuff. So we're certainly interested in learning a lot from you guys because I'm well aware that everyone has experience in dealing with the police. Everyone has their certain situations in which the police violated some sort of rights in questioning all that kind of stuff. And I know that we're all kind of activists in the same fight. So a lot of what we're going to be presenting is a lot of very real stuff and could and probably will come up sometime in the future. Especially if you guys are doing like a lot of cop watching and brutality observing or whatever the lingo is. So we're the Texas Civil Rights Project. We have been in Houston since July. Amin was our first staff in Houston. He's our executive director, staff attorney, and all that kind of stuff. So he is the ultimate source for like all of the legal questions. Any like super legal stuff should be directed at Amin. It's important to note, starting off though, that we're none of this is legal advice. We're like strictly prohibited from giving legal advice in these certain kinds of scenarios. So we're presenting what we know to be helpful information in dealing with the police. My name is Tom. I work with the Texas Civil Rights Project as well. I've been here since August. So yeah, important to note that Amin and I are super new in Houston. Hani is a law clerk that's working with us, and he actually recently just got barred, so he's a new attorney. And he's been wonderful enough to be putting a lot of volunteer hours in with our office. So we're very helpful for the work that Hani's been providing us. And yeah, hopefully Hani can stay with us for a little bit longer before he gets a super crazy attorney job. So Texas Civil Rights Project. Our main office is based out of Austin. We've been around since 1990 doing different types of work, litigation against police brutality happening from the very beginning. So our executive director used to be involved with like ACLU of Texas, all that kind of stuff. He kind of formed his own breakout organization, the Texas Civil Rights Project, to do like kind of broad-based civil rights claims, free speech kind of stuff. From the very, not from the very beginning, but we were the first office. We had the first like full-time prison rights attorney work for us. So we do a lot of work in the different prisons throughout Texas, and now since we're in Houston, in and around the Houston area, mostly like prison condition kind of stuff. We do a lot of disability rights work, since that kind of stuff is kind of easy to organize, and it was a lot of litigation for us to begin since when we first got in Houston. That has kind of, I don't know, that's kind of made up the most of our docket in the first couple of months. So we do a lot of accessibility claims. If you guys are eating in restaurants around Houston and notice that a bathroom isn't accessible or the restaurant itself isn't accessible, there's no handicapped parking spots, what have you, we'll take those kind of cases and make sure the restaurants get up to code with the ADA. Besides that, in some of our other offices, we do a little bit of immigration work, and then we do, my experience comes with labor organizing, and we do labor organizing in our El Paso and South Texas offices. Again, we're like super new in Houston, so we're just kind of trying to create a base, trying to kind of figure out what works for us in Houston, and what kind of litigation we're going to do going forward. But most definitely, like police brutality, violations of kind of official power within police, border patrol, ICE, what have you, is certainly stuff that we're interested in, and certainly stuff that we're willing to look at. So cool. Let's get moving. Oh, and actually, I want to know who you guys are before we start. So can can we like go around the room and people introduce themselves?
Sure. You want to go first?
Yeah. My name is Ryan. I'm with the Houston Freethinkers and Peaceful Streets Projects. I'm here just to kind of see what I can learn from you guys. Looking forward to doing some police brutality watching. All that kind of stuff.
Yeah.
That's what I'm doing.
Okay. My name is Frank Vidati. I'm also with Peaceful Streets Project, and I hang out with the Houston Freethinkers as well. And I'm here to learn more about how far I can push it when doing cop watches, without getting in trouble. And whatnot.
Yeah, cool.
All right, I'm Spencer. Recently, I've known some of the Houston Freethinkers for a while. Recently, becoming a little more involved with that. And yeah, I would just like to, educate myself and really look for solutions at the local and the community level. I think that's where empowerment and that's where progress comes from.
Mm-hmm.
I'm Nell Warnes. I'm with the Houston Peace and Justice Center, and Jamin came and spoke to us recently about the Peaceful Streets Project, and I'm here to see if there's anything I can do to help out and what you guys do and stuff.
My name is Natalie. I'm with Peaceful Street Project and Houston Freethinkers, and here to watch y'all's presentation and see if there's anything I can learn from it.
My name's Micah. I live around the corner. I heard this was going on. I was in the neighborhood, so I stopped by.
I'm T. I'm just kind of here to figure out what's going on and get active locally.
I'm Clayton. I'm here to. I've done some stuff with Freethinkers. I'm wanting to get involved with Peaceful Streets. I'm just here to learn more about my rights and how to interact with the police in this situation.
And I'm Taylor. I was one of the main organizers of Peaceful Streets Project Houston. I'm also involved in other local activist groups as well. So I'm definitely glad to have you guys here, and thank you everyone for coming. The reason being here is since I organized it, I'd like to contribute and learn more, so that's good.
My name is Marilee, and I'm with East Side Social Center Collective.
Cool. Thanks for,
and I'm Cody.
For having us.
He's our cameraman.
Cool. Yeah, well, we're excited to have you guys in Houston as a resource. I mean, I think that it could look very cool working together in future things. Yeah, and we're new in Houston as well, so we'll work together and start creating our base and all that kind of stuff. Cool. So, and Taylor, feel free, or anyone, feel free to jump in on any of this stuff, because yeah, we're not like the ultimate sources on all this stuff, and you guys probably know as much or more than us about what we're talking about. Okay, so what we're going to go through are situations in dealing with the police that might arise in a lot of different circumstances. So some of the things that we want to focus on, the circumstances that we want to focus on are when we're being detained, what the difference between being detained and arrested is, what police can do differently if we're detained and arrested, and what different rights we have in those two situations. Of course, if we're being arrested is another category. What to do when we're driving a car and the police stop us for a regular traffic stop or because they're suspicious of something else. When we're being questioned, kind of the types of questions that the police can and can't ask us, different responses that we need to give or maybe not need to give, and how police can kind of be a little bit tricky in getting too much information from us when we don't necessarily want to give that information, and how they can distort some of that stuff, actually. If police come knocking at our house and, yeah, we don't want to let the police in, yeah, all that kind of stuff, search warrants, arrest warrants, all stuff pertaining to residences. And God forbid the case in which the police stop us and we're undocumented. How that can be a little bit different than citizens or non-citizen legal permanent residents. And then, well, I don't know how interested you guys are in that kind of stuff, and we can kind of scale back if we need to on the on kind of immigrant rights kind of thing. And then Hani's gonna lead us through how to make complaints when something goes awry and when the police overstep their bounds. Yeah. And then just like some real brief caveats, which we've already kind of introduced. Legal versus practical issues. You know, Amin is like the source for legal stuff. Legal stuff isn't always concordant with like practical ways to handle yourself when the police come a knocking or stop you. Again, this is not legal advice whatsoever. We're trying to just create the dialogue. We're not giving advice. Every situation is unique. In an hour and a half, however long this presentation is going to be today, there's no way that we can cover every situation. And we were talking about some of these issues in the office for the past couple of days, trying to like put together the presentation. And we've come up with like a million different situations, and they've led to some pretty crazy discussions on what is like the actual legal routes that you can take, or the police can take in different situations. So, and we haven't even exhausted, like we haven't even scratched the surface on this. Yeah. So if you're arrested or charged with any of this stuff, get a criminal defense attorney. We're not criminal. It means not a criminal defense attorney. He's on the civil end. So yeah, God forbid someone gets arrested or is being detained and needs to answer a bunch of questions. They should call an attorney as soon as possible, but it's probably not going to be a meeting because.
So we come in on the civil side, and we usually do suits for damages. So we're suing for money, more or less, when something's gone wrong. But when the cops come after you, and they're charging you with real crimes, you're gonna want a criminal defense attorney to handle that part of it. And then once you get past all that, you're like, all right, what they did to me was unfair, and you think so. Then that's when someone like me or another attorney could look at it and see whether maybe some of your constitutional rights were violated, and then we'd go back after them for doing whatever they did that was wrong.
Cool. Hani's going to talk about constitutional rights.
Okay, so as you guys know, my name is Hani. We're going to be talking about the Fourth Amendment, the Fifth Amendment, and the Sixth Amendment. And we're not going to talk about all the legal theories, the concepts they cover, only a few. For the Fourth Amendment, we're going to talk about the right to refuse consent to searches. The Fifth Amendment, right to remain silent. And then the Sixth Amendment, right to an attorney for questioning. And I'm just gonna, this is the Fourth Amendment. I don't know if you guys have looked at this before. It gives you the right to refuse consent to searches. Generally, that means that the police or whoever must have probable cause to either search you or arrest you. But as you guys know, there are a lot of exceptions to that, including if you're driving a car and you get pulled over, exigent circumstances, or what area of the house they want to search. So Tom's going to talk about that more in depth later.
I should just add, the source of the Fourth Amendment is actually the reason the framers put that in the Constitution was because part of the reason for the whole American Revolution was one of the things that people took issue with was back in England, the old king, whose name escapes me, would often send their guards. You know the name?
George III.
George III would often send his troops into people's homes and ransack and to look for things, and just out of nowhere, and people could do nothing about it. So one of the reasons behind the revolution and all that, one of the things that they were definitely fighting for was this privacy, your privacy in your own home. So that's why they included this. Yeah.
I have one question concerning like Fourth Amendment and filming police. Say you're filming an officer that's going forward with being over-aggressive, committing brutality and so forth, and the officer gets aggravated and asks for your camera, saying it's evidence, etc., or something else. This has happened in Austin before, I think. And the basic question is, if I'm filming a cop and he demands to confiscate my camera, do I legally have to give it to him?
I don't think so.
That's good.
I mean, I don't think so. But I've actually seen this come up. Cops get uneasy about it. But as far, I'm fairly certain that when you're videoing that you have like a right to do that.
Yeah, definitely.
And if they want to take it as evidence, I mean, I don't think that they can just take your phone and confiscate it for that reason. But actually, that's a good.
Look further into
I need to look into that actually a little bit because I've seen that. I'm like 99% sure that they just can't take your phone. That there are other avenues if they want that information, they could probably go through and get it. But that's a good question, and that's one that I'll have to look into a little bit more. But that does come up frequently. I know that people are videoing and cops will become aggressive and things like that. But I'm fairly certain that you're allowed to video, and I don't think that they can take for no reason your phone.
They do.
Here's the Fifth Amendment. We're going to focus on what's underlined, and that's the right to remain silent. Well, that covers usually the right to remain silent. And usually the scenarios it protects include like protecting yourself from self-incrimination during trial or coercion during a law enforcement questioning. So, yeah, and also the Miranda rights are covered by that clause. The most important thing about this one is that you must invoke your right to remain silent to actually take advantage of it. So if you're just quiet, and at a later date they ask you something and you say something, then it could be used against you in court. Also, if you do speak, it might be considered as a waiver as well. So if they ask a question and then you answer it, so you have to be careful about that. Yeah. And if you don't invoke your right to remain silent, they can keep interacting with you, they can keep questioning you, badgering you maybe. So you have to be careful. Yeah, go ahead.
When the officer asks you if you understand, in Black's Law Dictionary, that said, do you guys read Black's Law Dictionary? Have you ever read it?
We know what it is.
I know what it is, yeah.
Yeah.
Have y'all taken the bar exam?
Yeah.
Passed it?
Yeah.
But I don't. But when you say yes to an officer that I understand, that actually means that you stand under his authority. In the Black's Law Dictionary, that's actually concrete evidence. Right? Like there's also. Anyway,
so what do you mean by say yes to
if a cop asks you, he reads you Miranda rights, and you say you understand, you're actually waiving rights away by saying yes, I understand, I stand underneath you.
Well, yeah, sort of. I mean, you can say yes, you understand, but then if what he's saying is you have to actually, if you don't say anything after that, then you do waive your rights. And what he's saying is if you want to remain silent, I think there's a slide on this at some point. You say, I'm exercising my right to remain silent and I would like an attorney.
Yeah, and I think this is a recent case that I think happened like 2 years ago, where I'm not sure of the facts of the case, but in the end the holding was that you have to actually invoke your right to remain silent, that you're not going to answer their questions.
So you have to say
want an attorney.
Remain silent, or you could just remain silent, or you have to say,
you have to say it.
It's important to say it.
It's important.
It's important to say it, just to make it clear.
Yeah.
Thank you.
I have one question. If I'm filming some police and they are like, they start asking me who I am and so forth while I'm recording them, do I legally have to say my name or anything, even if they go, well, so on and so forth? I'm not being detained. I'm not being arrested yet. I'm just basically filming them, and they start asking me who I am. Do I need to comply with?
No.
The answer is no, but we'll talk a lot about that.
Right.
Okay, Sixth Amendment. This is we're going to focus on the last part, the assistance of counsel clause. This is your right to have an attorney for questioning. So the important thing here is to remember that once arrested and confined, you have a right to counsel when the government interrogates you. And the most important thing about that is, like, whenever you're questioned by police, just tell them, I'd like to have my attorney present, you know, for questioning. That's really important. You should never answer a police officer question like after you're arrested. The right only exists after you've been arrested. So after you're arrested, the detectives come in and they ask you questions. Never answer their questions. Always ask for an attorney first. Go ahead.
If you ask them if you're being detained, do they have 15 minutes to execute their duties, or they have unlimited amount?
No, it's under the circumstance. You know, if it's a big crowd and they have to put a bunch of people.
Right.
I mean, the courts are going to give cops a lot of leeway.
No, I'm saying if I get pulled over on I-10.
Yeah,
and
again.
Say, I want to search you, I could say I don't consent to searches, and they have 15 minutes to either find in plain sight or a smell or something like that. Do I have 15 minutes? Because I know in California, if you say, am I being detained, they have 15 minutes, yes, once you answer that, to get you on the way or to put you in handcuffs. I don't know.
No, I know what you mean, but as far as I know, they don't generally set bright line rules for how long they can detain you. I think I've seen something like this before, at least in Texas. Right. You have to understand Texas is going to be way more officer friendly than California. So as far as I know,
scrotum before. I mean, search my pants and stuff.
Yeah.
It's bad.
Yeah. I mean, there are cases where sometimes they hold people for hours, and it just depends on the situation. Oh. Each situation is a little bit different.
Okay, so basic responsibilities when you encounter police: stay calm and be quiet. Do not interfere with or obstruct the police. Do not run from the police. Do not resist or assault police. Do not lie or give false documents. But remember, the police can lie to you, which is how they catch a lot of people, by the way, and screw them up.
See? Yeah, okay. So let's, maybe if we skip over detention for a little bit, because I think it makes more logical sense to talk about questioning first. Okay, so all the information is like kind of up here, but I still like doing like questions and participation thing. The first thing to do if we're stopped by a police officer, if we're in our car, if we're on foot, what's the first thing that we should do? Put your hands really. That probably is the first thing that you should do. Yeah. After we put our hands where we can see them, where they can see them.
Documentation, ID.
If you're in a vehicle, you, of course, you pull over the side of the road, you put your hands on the steering wheel, and you crack the window.
Exactly. The first thing that we should do, especially if we're on foot, we should ask the police if we're free to leave. Because the police are not going to, yeah, you're free to leave. I stopped you for no reason. If you ask the police, am I free to leave, and the police say, yeah, you're free to leave, then you gotta get the hell out of there. And, you know, maybe sometimes the police might tell you they're free to leave. Probably they're not going to say that, though. Okay, so you're on foot, police come up to you, you ask them if you're free to leave, they say no, then you're being detained. That's detention right there. Because they say no, that you assume that they're going to want to ask you some questions. So probably the first thing that they're going to ask you is, what's your name? You're on foot, police say, what's your name? Do you have to provide them that information?
Yes. You have to at least give a social security number and name.
No, you don't have to provide any identification.
Nothing. So first, actually, if they ask you, what's your name? Your response to them should probably be, am I being arrested? If they say no, you're not being arrested. If they don't have probable cause to arrest you, you don't have to give them your name. That's pretty straight down the line in Texas. You do not need to give them your name if they ask you for your name and you're not being arrested. And if they ask you your name, they say that you're being arrested and they want to get a name out, or you're not being arrested, but you just feel like giving your name for whatever reason, like, don't lie at all about that, because then it becomes a misdemeanor, and that may have been worse than whatever you were.
They have like a nickname or something.
A nickname, I think a nickname would be fine. I mean, as long as you're not obscuring who you are impersonating someone, exactly. So how are we doing on this? Yeah, cool. Right to remain silent. Exactly. If you're exercising your right to remain silent, like Hani said, and Amin said, it's always best to exercise that right out loud. You can exercise that right, not saying I'm exercising my right to remain silent, but it's probably usually better to exercise the right to remain silent out loud. Why is that so important? Why is it so important to exercise the right to remain silent?
So you don't incriminate yourself?
Exactly, exactly. A lot of police, if they're questioning, they'll say, "Oh, do you know why I'm stopping you? Do you know why I'm coming up to you?" And I think, yeah.
A lot of times people will admit, right?
Oh yeah, it's because I got marijuana in my pocket.
Yeah.
Don't incriminate yourself. What you don't say can't be used against you in the court of law. So exercise your right to remain silent. Ask for an attorney right there. You can say, I want to speak to my attorney, whether you have an attorney or not. Usually, police probably aren't going to like that. And you don't necessarily, you're not entitled to an attorney at that point, but if you don't want to speak without an attorney, you don't want to speak without an attorney, and you do have the right to remain silent. The other thing that police might say is like, talk right now, because if you talk to us, if you tell us your story, then we're not going to press charges against you, which is ridiculous, because police can't press charges. The prosecuting attorney can press charges, so it's like it's inherently a lie. If the police say, talk to us, we won't press charges, get a chance to tell your story. You can get a chance to tell your story, but just don't do it like immediately in front of the police, not in the courtroom. All that kind of stuff. Cool. And then a lot of times they'll threaten with like a subpoena. If you don't talk to me, then I'll get a subpoena. Be like, all right, get your subpoena. I'll stay here and remain silent until you get your subpoena. Yeah.
And a lot of times, I think, when they do, a lot of times they sometimes have whatever they're trying to work on. They want to, finish the job, so that they usually, when they're pulling you over, or talking to you about a specific crime, they want it to be you, right? So that they can say, all right, it's you, case closed, next. And so a lot of the times, they'll just like put all the facts in a way that will lead them on a track towards like you. And so even if you think, hey, I'm perfectly innocent, I should speak, even then you might want to just think about it, because they'll take some bits and pieces of what you say, and you never know how it's going to be used. And so just exercise some caution. And they're going to tell you, they'll probably say things like, if you want a lawyer, like you don't have anything to hide, blah blah blah. If you don't have anything to hide, you don't need a lawyer. They'll say all these things to you, and even if it's true, you still probably might want to double check.
Also, real quick, like even if you feel like you're being coerced, still don't say anything. A lot of times police officers are intimidating. You might feel like you have to give that information away. The thing is, if you do give that information away, in court it's seen as you've consented to give it, even though you felt like you weren't consenting, you were being coerced. So like your right to remain silent is very important. You should always practice it.
The other thing is, and you guys have more experience than us with this, is when you're being questioned by a police officer, what are they usually doing the questioning with? Do they usually have a tape recorder and they're recording like word for word what you're saying, or are they usually like taking notes?
Yeah,
they're usually exactly. They're usually taking notes, which later on they're going to have to go back and summarize the notes. They're going to have to fill in gaps. They're going to have to, make a coherent story out of all of it. So, if you're talking and the police is making a coherent story of their notes after all of this happened, then, you don't want them to fill in the gaps with stuff that might not be true. So that's another reason to maintain silence. What about other questions? Definitely don't have to give your name if you're not being arrested. What about like other questions? Where are you going? What are you doing here today? Where are you going? Do I have to answer those? Exactly, of course.
So basically, like say you're filming a police arrest happening, and like, hey, why are you recording? And you're in a reasonable distance and so forth. They're just acting overly aggressive. You don't have to reply to them, and I'll do all that.
No. No, most definitely not.
Do you actually have to alert the officer that you are recording if it's in a situation?
Oh, that's a good question. I don't know.
I have an app that's it's released by the ACLU of New Jersey, and it's police tape. And basically, when you activate it, it starts recording you can either record audio or video, but it'll blank out your screen so it does not show up. So it looks like are you recording it? Officer, no.
That's cool. That's a good question. Do you know the answer to
I
that?
don't think you would have to announce to that. It doesn't seem to make any sense why you would have to
I think
announce.
as long as you're in a public space.
Yeah.
But what we can do is, I think we can, especially with I think there's going to be a lot of questions around recording. I didn't know you guys were all into the recording of the cops and stuff. So we can actually look into that a little bit and maybe send out an email or something about some of the basic points, and maybe we can do like a follow-up meeting quickly or something at some point. But actually, maybe if we could get, before everyone leaves, everyone's email address and we can stay in contact on some of this stuff, that would be good. Yeah.
But I think in Texas, the rule is only one party who's being recorded has to consent, right?
Right.
So
Yeah.
if you're recording yourself,
Yeah, exactly.
so you're the
Like
one who knows.
for like phone calls, like I know that it's a one-party consent rule in Texas.
Right.
So if you wanted to record a phone conversation with anyone, as long as you consent to recording your own conversation, that's pretty. The other person doesn't have to know. But now, be careful if you're calling someone in another state, and there might be some might get crazy. But that's true in Texas.
One of the crazy things, if the tables are turned, I was actually reading about this a couple days ago, and the police are videotaping you. I was just at an action on Saturday, and the police were videotaping the entire action. Then you can actually be charged with, I think it's a misdemeanor offense, if you like obscure the police's videotape with what they're doing, because it's obscuring an investigation or whatever the charge is, which is really crazy.
I mean, even if you like walk by, like just kind of.
I don't think for that. If you're like putting a poster in front of the police's camera, probably. Yeah. So if police are questioning you, you have the right at any time to stop answering questions. If you've already started giving questions, you can say, "I don't wish to be part of this conversation. I don't wish to answer any of the rest of your questions." What else? Police can lie. Hani already said that. This is how they catch most people. They lie. They say, we've got enough evidence to incriminate you anyway. It's best to just fess up right now. We've got fingerprints that are going to incriminate you. We've got video surveillance that have you walking out of the store with store goods, and the cashier said that you didn't purchase them. And
they'll
they
say
do this all the
cooperate
time.
with us, and they will be lenient. But like Tom said, it's not their decision about. When it comes to leniency of punishment, they don't make the decision on what your punishment is. It goes to an entirely different entity, and that's the prosecutor that will look at it and then decide.
Mm-hmm.
You know, and they might try to put in a good word for you, but at the end of the day, if you have a real dick of a prosecutor, you know, it doesn't matter how helpful you were. You know.
And the police can do anything. They can say anything they want. The Supreme Court has given them that jurisdiction. How about searches? Searches are always good. What are the police allowed to do if they search? Or let's go back a little bit I think that this has the frisk, pat down stuff. What are the police allowed to do if they want to search your body?
Everything, besides sticking a finger in it, perhaps. I don't know.
It's a little stricter than that.
No, they've literally done some stuff, you know.
I mean that's definitely some abuse if they've done that without cause.
They like lifted my stuff and tried seeing if I had something stashed underneath there.
Yeah.
That's HPD.
So are people? That's
HPD.
crazy.
Yeah.
That's absolutely crazy. And we're seeing that HPD
So is that legal?
I mean, it depends what the situation was. Are people familiar with Terry v. Ohio?
No.
A little bit. Okay. So basically, and I wasn't.
So let's start out with the premise that a cop can't come up to you and say, I need to pat you down for no reason, right?
Mm-hmm.
So to get to that point.
So what happened in like 1960? There was this case that went to the Supreme Court. I think it went to the Supreme Court. Terry v. Ohio, which was a couple officers observing a couple people they were like walking back and forth on the street, and they noticed that there was like some pattern to it. So they were walking back and forth on the street, and then like after like the 10th time, somebody came up, he asked them like a couple questions, and then they all went out together somewhere. So the police officer from that interpreted that they, for whatever he saw, I don't know what he saw, but he interpreted that they were going to do a stick-up somewhere. And he formed reasonable suspicion, this phrase, reasonable suspicion, to think that they were going to do a stick-up somewhere. So what he did is he went and patted the outside of their clothing, which you're allowed to do with reasonable suspicion. If you believe that there's a possible crime happened or will happen, and you're like, I don't know, what is it, 50% sure or more?
Well, if there's a reasonable belief that a criminal activity is afoot, is the thing, is the standard there, I think. So but they just can't make it up, right? They have to be able to point to a couple of things. Either these guys were acting a little suspicious, they were looking into store windows, they were meeting, they were talking, they were kind of doing some weird exchange on the street and like discussing. And that's why this cop decided, hold on, I need to talk to you guys, let me pat you down.
So what he did, so he pats them down, and so you're allowed to do that with reasonable suspicion, like outside of your clothes. You're not allowed to go inside pockets or anything like that, but he pats him down, and in his jacket he feels something hard. So from the reasonable suspicion, the cop gets another probable cause to confiscate, to take the jacket off of him, search the pockets of the jacket. He finds a gun in the jacket, and then he doesn't charge, the prosecuting attorney charges the civilian of having a concealed weapon. So
what they were trying to do in that case was they tried to argue that the search was unconstitutional and therefore threw out all the evidence in the case, in the criminal case, but the Supreme Court, that's where you get your basic frisk stops these days. That all comes from that one Supreme Court case in the 60s or 70s, I think.
So they ruled in favor of
the cops.
being able
The cops being able to, if they have a reasonable, if they can point to a few facts that, that lead them to believe that there's some criminal activity that either just happened or is about to happen, but they have to be able to point to at least a couple of specific facts, and then they can go in and say, stop, let me search you.
And the cops have pretty absurd, sometimes pretty absurd reasons for reasonable suspicion. Like sometimes it's like a headlights out, or it's like somebody had like one hand on the steering wheel and then he put his other hand, so I thought something suspicious was going on. It's pretty ridiculous at times. But the whole point is to get to probable cause usually.
Yeah, so this is a good example to illustrate what the difference between probable cause and reasonable suspicion is. So probable cause is like a step up from reasonable suspicion, whereas reasonable suspicion might be like one factor. Like I stopped the guy and he had something, and he was like gesturing in a weird direction, or he looked like he might have been involved with some sort of crime. That might be reasonable suspicion. Probable cause is like I actually felt something hard in the jacket, or I saw a gun in the car when I pulled the person over, or the person made like a quick gesture under his seat in the car to pull out something. That might give them probable cause, which usually gives them a little bit more flexibility to do what they want and to search what they want in the scenario.
Yeah, just remember from the beginning, like you need probable cause to search and arrest. So,
yeah, that's what they need. So if you're filming the police and it's like cold outside and you're wearing baggy clothes or something, they come over to you already angry that you're filming them, and you're going to insert your freedom of speech to the fullest extent. So maybe throw in some, vulgarity and so on. Back and forth, it just makes the cop mad. And then the cop goes, well, let me search your jacket. Can you refuse?
Yeah, because the cops can't use you exercising your right to free speech as to form probable cause.
Yeah. And that's the worst, is that people, I bet the statistics are probably pretty staggering, but most of the time people say, the cop says, can I search your jacket? And you say, yeah. Which is, once you consent, you've waived all your rights there, and I think probably more than anything, that's what happens. They show up to your house, hey, can I look around? Sure. Or, you know, can I look in, you know, in your car? Yeah, go for it. Or can I look at your jacket, or whatever it might be. I think so many times people just say yes because they, I don't know, under the circumstances, you know, they're scared, nervous, and they just say yes, and they screw themselves.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
They mentioned like the way that they say it, and the arrow of authority really does kind of catch you off guard.
Yeah.
Because it gives
But the Supreme Court doesn't care. So.
Yeah.
Well, and someone like Border Patrol in like immigrant situations will use nervousness or lack of a language to form probable cause, which is a little bit ridiculous as well. Okay, so it's pretty clear the difference between detention and if you're being arrested. When you're detained, it's just that they want to ask you some more questions. And exactly as we said, under both scenarios, you have the right to answer. Okay, stopped in your car. What's the first thing you should do if you're stopped in your car?
Hide.
Hands up on the steering wheel, right? Hide.
Provide license.
Yeah. So put your hands up first, though. Don't go for any of the stuff. Don't go for your registration. Don't go in your glove compartment before the police come up, because he reached for a gun in his glove compartment while I was walking up. Wait until they come up. Wait until they ask you for your driver's license, registration, and proof of insurance, because they might not ask. They probably will, but wait until they ask you for that. And yeah, that's probably a good idea, is rolling the window down just like a little bit, especially if there are like some fumes in the car, or if there's like some stuff hiding out in the back seat. Yeah, you don't really want them to see into the car too much, or to maybe smell what's going on in the car. So just do it a little bit. Put your cards out. Police can ask you to step out of the car. They can ask you and the passenger to step out of the car, and what they can do is they can actually divide you, and they can question you separately to see if the stories coordinate. You don't have to, of course, you don't have to answer questions. But
Do you have to get out of the car?
yes.
Legally, can they pull you out of the car if you don't?
I don't know if they can pull you out of the car, but you do have to get out of the car. I imagine they probably could pull you out of the car if
you're not following.
Yeah, you're not following orders, and
Yeah.
you're resisting arrest.
Exactly.
Yeah.
If you were being pulled over and you already had your front window down and you were like waiting for you to come up, and they came up and just like demanded for you to roll your back window down, do you
No.
have to do that?
No. I mean, you ask them. I would ask them, well, why are you asking me to roll my back?
Yeah,
window?
I hadn't broken any laws. I'm actually going to court for this next week.
Yeah.
But, yeah, they just came up like demanding. I asked her why am I being pulled over, and she just kept on saying, "Roll it down," blah, 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 like screaming at me. Like,
She should have told you why. I mean, that's an important thing to have. Why am I being pulled over? Why did you stop me?
What, are your back windows like tinted or something?
not illegally. I mean, they're
Yeah.
a little bit tinted, but I mean, you can see them with a
That's
flashlight.
I mean, that's tough, because if it was dark and they can't see, they might want to look and see if there are people back there for their own safety. Sometimes.
Flashlights for.
Yeah.
Yeah,
This
because I
is
mean,
true. Yeah, where's the
they're like
flashlight?
windows. Like if you shined a flashlight in it, you'd be able to see them. For sure. And like I said, I already had my front window like all the way down. She was like, I felt like she was just kind of trying to.
Well, she might justify that, saying that she had reasonable suspicion to prove that there was something in your back seat, which I think happens a lot. But who knows? Police ask you out of your car, which you probably shouldn't exit the car, leave your door open, let them search it through. So take your keys with you. When you exit your car, close it and lock it, because then they can't search your car. Then they need to ask you for consent to search your car. Whereas before, if you had your car door open, they can certainly see through. They can get reasonable suspicion. They can get probable cause to then search your car, which would include search of the trunk, search of any bags, purses that may be in your car. Yeah, you don't want to waive those rights right away. Automatically, when you're driving, you are waiving some of your rights because there's certain information that you need to provide right off the bat. You need to. I mean, they know your name right off the bat. They've got your license. They've got all that stuff about you right off the bat. But it's important not to keep like some incriminating stuff in plain sight. To just be careful when you're driving.
Does that probable cause that they have for your vehicle then extend to your person automatically?
I guess it depends what the charge is. If it's, what do you think, Amir?
Probably, yeah, I think it does. I mean, if it's your vehicle that's part of the criminal activity, you know, then you're probably part of it too. At that point, I think they can search your person as well.
I have another question. If you're driving and like you forget your driver's license, but you provide them with like your information willingly and everything like that, are they allowed to arrest you for that?
Usually
they can give you a ticket.
I think they can give you a ticket.
For not
they
your
might be able
information.
to arrest you for that too. It depends.
Well, I mean, technically, I got arrested for that, or
I think they
detained for
could,
that,
yeah.
and they shouldn't let me go. But
They could.
Like you didn't give your driver's license or something?
yeah, I had just forgotten it at home. It was the same
Yeah.
time, and I guess she got mad because I wanted to know why I was being pulled over
Yeah.
before I rolled down my window, and then
Why were you being?
I
did you
forgot I
find
didn't
out?
have. She said that I ran a stop sign,
Oh.
which I have a picture like where she was sitting. She couldn't even see the stop sign, so she really just pulled me over for no reason. Which is why I wanted to know why she wanted me to roll my window down, because it scared me, because she was just like coming up to my window with like her hand on her gun yelling at me, and I thought she thought I was like the wrong person.
Yeah, I have a question. Say my friend gets pulled over on the passenger side, and the officer tells my friend to step out of the vehicle. At this time, I'm going to have my camera rolling, make sure nothing bad happens to either the officer or my friend. Am I legally allowed to step out and say I'm begin recording? Do I have to let the cops know I'm going to step out of the car and start recording, or how does that work?
I think it's always best to let the cops know that you're doing that kind of thing, just because if you get out and like make some sort of motion that you're like.
Well, once I let them know, then they can't say for me to stay in the car. I can say, hey, I'm getting out of the car to film you.
No, I mean I think you can definitely get in the car. Yeah, most definitely. But you should always if you're like motioning towards the glove compartment, if you're like rolling the windows down, if you need to reach for something under your seat, you should always let the cops know like I'm going for the glove compartment, just so that they don't form
freak out.
Yeah, exactly. Exactly.
It's too intense.
I was lucky. I got pulled over because I was driving back from Austin from Students for Liberty conference, and the guy's car I was driving, because I was the designated driver, they'd all been drinking and some of them were visibly intoxicated. And so when I got pulled over, because the headlights were literally out, and so I had to drive with the brights on. And so I think the cop was just glad that because he walked up and it smelled like alcohol. He said, "Have you anything to drink this evening?" I mean, it's one of those legal versus practical. I went right ahead and said, no, I'm the designated driver.
Exactly.
And I think he didn't hassle us just because you mentioned, I'm the designated driver. And so just
right. Exactly.
So you had some sort of inherent respect for the situation.
Yeah.
I mean, you can kind of, again, it's like you can kind of gauge the cop. If he's coming on or she's coming on really aggressive, then you're like, whoa, but if they're like, but you have to be careful too, because they might be a little, but you can kind of say, but if you can usually sense when things are not going well, and that's when, and you can stop talking and invoke your right to remain silent at any point. So it's not like it's all or none, at some point when you're like, okay, this is not good, I don't want to talk anymore. Then just say so.
Real quick, let's say they claim to smell marijuana in the car. If I say I do not consent to search it, and they do search and they do find something, would I have more evidence in court or more bargaining power to win that case if I didn't consent to that search?
Like if you didn't consent, then you can bring it up like a motion to suppress that evidence.
Right. And
if you do consent.
Yeah, I mean,
I think it depends what other conflating factors are going on.
And the thing is, like, they're going to bring up, like, their theories on why they searched, right? They're going to say, we smelt marijuana, so we had probable cause to search the vehicle.
Yeah.
Well, let's say if they smelled marijuana, that was their cause to get them. They saw like, they thought it was stems and seeds on the counter or something.
Yeah.
And they didn't find anything having to do with marijuana. They found, probably a gun, an unregistered gun or something of some kind.
Yeah.
Or a gun with a stolen serial number. Or would they, I mean, if you said I didn't consent, that, I mean, for my research.
I mean, that's what if you're at that point, I mean, that's what a criminal attorney would have to argue. It would be close. That's a close one.
That might be enough to give them probable cause if they smell the marijuana and see the stems.
What they're going to write is in their report is I saw, if there were stems and seeds and they smelled it, you're probably going to lose. And if they're probably going to say that the subject's eyes was bloodshot or whatever else, other symptoms you have from marijuana, and then you know when it's really going to come down to what a judge thinks. A criminal defense attorney will argue no. A judge will probably let that go, I think, and say, if they saw the stems and seeds, I mean, that's probably good enough if it's not legal in your state.
If they didn't even find me, if they found something else. This hasn't happened. I'm just saying.
No, that's once they start looking for weed, if they come across anything else, that's But another example is if they're looking for a stolen baseball bat in your car, for instance, you stole Barry Bonds' bat or something, or there's a missing one. They pull you over and they start looking at your dashboard and they find weed. That doesn't fly, right? Because there's no way you're going to put a baseball bat in your glove compartment, right? And so if there's weed in there and they find it and they pull you over, a good criminal defense attorney is going to be like, "What were you doing searching the glove compartment when you're looking for a baseball bat?" You know. So they'll probably throw that out. Yeah.
And like the whole idea of saying like I don't consent to the search is so they don't say, "Oh, he consented to the search," and so we're allowed to look everywhere. That's the whole point of that.
So if I didn't consent, I'd have more bargaining power in the court.
I mean, it depends on your case. You might say that, but they might have like a lot of evidence.
Right. Well, you would have a better argument if you didn't.
You
consent.
definitely don't have.
Once you consent,
you're not going to win because of that. Because it depends on whether they smelled marijuana or saw like a gun or something. You know?
Yeah.
Good stuff.
And it's
so, like you can actually bring up that defense then. You know, by saying
once you consent, you've waived your rights.
Yeah.
Oh, I don't know if this has already been asked, but what do you think about, because I've been told by certain people, like, when you get pulled over, turn your car off, step out of your car, lock the door, and greet the officer so that there's no them coming to look into your window or whatever, that you know, for you to get out of the car.
Be careful again, but I think you could probably do that.
I would tell the police officer I'm getting out of my car right now.
Yeah, because I've had officers who have freaked out when they saw you getting out of the car.
They may freak out, but it doesn't mean you can't do it.
And that
right. But the thing is if you don't freak out the officer, you're more likely to have a good encounter. Because it's just against their expectations. Or why is this person doing something really weird? They should just be sitting, waiting patiently for me to come approach the window.
And in certain situations, that might give cops reasonable suspicion of something. This guy exited his car, he wants to flee the scene. Who knows what the hell the cops are going to say?
But that's changed over time. When I was young, that was what you did.
Was common.
You got pulled over, you got out of the car and walked back. But now they're like, get back in your car, get back in your car. So it's
and I bet a cop would use that as reasonable suspicion.
And like, the thing is, you know, we have to remember we're dealing with the HPD, the guys who shot a double amputee. You know what I mean? Like, if they find it, like one type of movement that they feel is dangerous, then they could use excessive force.
You guys heard about that? The HPD shot a guy with a double amputee with a pen.
That wasn't that far from here.
What?
That
it was in this. So.
Crazy.
If you were to say, like, let's say the cop says, "Can I search your backpack?" and you say, "Yes, you can search only this," is that just consenting at all?
Yeah, that's consenting to stolen.
Well, you shouldn't even say that.
This is never consent.
I don't know why you would say that.
Because like they can under reasonable suspicion.
All right, one more question. As far as K9 units, like, if I didn't consent to a search, like a cop asked me if he can search my car, and I said no. He said they're going to bring out the K9 unit, and if the dogs do a hit, then they can search my car. That's perfectly legal, right?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, the sniff of the dog is there's a lot of cases about that they can do that.
It seems like technically that's already kind of a search of your car, in my opinion.
Yeah.
Yeah.
A lot of these circumstances are parallel well with things that might go on with searches of your house as well. The whole thing with like the baseball bat, we were talking before about like cops can't go into your closet if they suspect you have a missing table because the table won't fit in the closet.
Yeah.
Like
it's all about intrusion into privacy. That's what you got to think about. So with the sniff of the dog, I mean, you're not really intruding into anything of yours. But an infrared camera at your home, they can't use because that is intrusive because you can see a lot of things that are really private. You can see someone getting in the shower, you know, because if you had and this was actually a case where I think the feds or somebody was using infrared cameras to like monitor what they thought were marijuana growing houses.
Or like drones over houses.
Yeah, well, drones are different.
Okay. Yeah.
Drones, if they're taking pictures, that's okay.
They can take a picture over your house.
Yeah, because if it's a common angle, right, that anyone could get from the aerial view, and they're taking pictures, then you didn't really expect privacy. But then you're taking a picture of the outside of your house.
It's not the government.
Yeah.
The FCC was recently arguing that the drone operators have no obligation to privacy.
Right. At this point.
For American skies.
Yeah. And at this point, they're probably right. Depending on what they're doing, I guess.
Can the state lose a case on like a technicality, like if they left evidence in the car from like a search? Like they left a Q-tip that they'd put some weird solution on it and swabbed my car or something, and they left it there.
I mean, potentially, but I think in that instance you'd have a criminal defense attorney saying their lab work which was pretty shoddy, and therefore you shouldn't trust any of it because they don't know what they're doing. But that's how you. But I don't think that unless they destroyed their own evidence, you know, something you have to rise pretty high. Usually, I think we're going to eventually, hopefully, get to it. Like for a lot of these violations, there are specific remedies, and he's going to talk about it. Like what happens if they find things and they search when they shouldn't have, or they don't. Let's say you say you want an attorney, and they don't honor that, and then you go to trial or whatever, and you end up losing, and you don't get your attorney, or you right to remain silent. What's your remedy? And we'll talk about that.
Yeah. Let's briefly talk about. As I said, there's a lot of parallels between the car and the house. But if police are coming to your house, and so they're knocking on your door, should you answer?
I don't think you have to answer, right?
No.
Yeah, you don't have to.
No.
You can say, "I don't open the door for cops."
You can, you can talk to the warrant. I would talk to him. Exactly. I would talk to him through the door. Don't answer it. Probably, I wouldn't talk to them through the door if I didn't speak English. But I would talk to them through the door. Don't answer it. You have to be careful if a lot of people have like those screen doors that lock, and they'll pull open the door and talk to the officer through the screen door. But then the officer has like a pretty good angle seeing into your house. Don't answer it. Don't let them see into your house. Ask for a warrant. And what do they need to provide? What are the most important things to look out in a warrant? To look out for in a warrant?
Judge's signature?
Address needs to be exactly. Judge's signature, exactly. And then your name needs to be exactly your name. And what they're looking for. It should have a scope on it. Yeah, it can't just be a general search of the house.
Yeah, it's the same with like baseball bat in the car principle. If they're looking for a stolen car, and and you live in a small condo, then if they come at you with a search warrant, or like a small house, then they're probably looking in your garage, maybe around your house. But if they start to come inside, you can't fit a small car in there, and they're going past the scope. So if they start looking in drawers for your car, you can't do that.
Yeah, so this is super easy. If they don't have a warrant, just tell them to get the hell out of there. If they do have a warrant, then you should probably let them in. They're either pull the door down, or unhinge the door, or something like that, and enter through forcibly.
I have a thing, like, I don't always answer my phone just because it rings, and I don't always answer
Yeah.
the door just because somebody's knocking on it.
Yeah.
So does that give them probable cause or reasonable suspicion to then kick in my door if they suspect I'm home and I'm not answering the door because there are dang cops knocking on it?
Usually not.
Should.
Usually not. So there are some. There's unless they think that there's some imminent danger or something in there, they usually have to knock and announce themselves. They'll have to knock. Police, open the door, or they'll have to do it what they call a knock and announce. We're not gonna, but if they think maybe something crazy is going on in there, someone's being stabbed or I don't know what. A hostage, I don't know, whatever it might be, they might come in. Or sometimes I think if they think that like really important evidence might be being destroyed.
Which they always think.
Right. We actually did a case with this, something similar. In San Antonio, we did a Texas Civil Rights Project did a case because in San Antonio, when the cops were doing drug-related searches, they were employing just a blanket no-knock policy, and they were going into they had a search warrant to go search for drugs in people's homes, and the San Antonio Police Department was just barging in and looking for whatever they did. They wouldn't knock and announce themselves, and they were arguing. I think that people were going to destroy the drugs if they knocked and announced. But I mean, it was crazy, and actually, I think the lower court. If I remember correctly, I think the lower court said it was fine for them to do that, but the Fifth Circuit overturned it recently and said you can't just do that. You have to knock and announce unless there's some like real danger of something bigger happening, So, but they still do that. I think across Texas there are a lot of police departments that on just blankets. I don't know what HPD does.
I think that they can execute no-knock warrants.
You can do no-knock warrants, but they require a very special set of circumstances. Very special.
Yeah. And usually, if you have a warrant and they, if they have a warrant and they knock, and you're like, I'm not going to let you guys in or say nothing, they can just come in.
Yeah.
I mean, a warrant gives them free reign to come in.
Yeah,
and then if you do want to talk to them, usually step outside and close the door.
Exactly.
So once they look inside and they see anything, because anything that they see that might be incriminating, they can potentially use and say, hey, look, I just saw, an ounce of weed on the guy's counter. Then they can call in and say, look, I saw some marijuana. We have probable cause to believe. They'll probably get a warrant and they'll be back. So either hide the weed before you open the door or do whatever you need to do. But step outside if you do want to talk to them.
But a car is known in the courtroom as an extension of your home, correct?
A car?
Yeah. Your own car.
Yeah.
I don't know what language the court uses, but the cars are treated differently than homes.
What if you have a concealed gun in your car in the glove box? And say you legally bought it from a gun shop, but you can have it in your extension of your home, right?
Texas. In Texas, you can have you can't have a bullet in the chamber, but you can have a gun with a clip in it, as long as it's concealed like it can be on the other.
Legally?
Yes. They're very
It just can't be loaded.
Yeah.
The thing about a car you have to remember is that, for a home, they need a warrant to search you most of the time, nearly all the time. For a car, it goes through that whole reasonable suspicion or probable cause thing. They don't need to get a warrant because your car is you can move, So they need it right then.
It's it's weird. The Fourth Amendment is kind of a sliding scale. Inside your home, you'll have the most protection. Just on the fringes of your house, right on the outside, if you have little buildings or spaces or basements or storage, you might not get as much protection as the inside. And then the further your yard is going to get a little bit less protection. And so it's very interesting. So there are some cases where people have garbage, and if you put the garbage outside in front of your house, and the cops come and look at it, well, it was your property, and it was right next to your house, and you still had a privacy interest in that garbage, and then looking at it without any suspicion is a violation of your Fourth Amendment rights. But then if you put it out on the street, right? There was a case where a guy put his garbage out on the street. And the cops went in there. They were they didn't have anything, but they were looking for stuff. And this guy's doing something shady. And the defense attorney was like, well, this is an invasion of his privacy. But the court says that once he put that garbage out on the street, that he didn't really have any more privacy interest in his trash. So It's always circumstantial. Yeah.
Well, and for years, I was a full-time RVer, so that is my home. I guess hence the name motor home, but or our travel trailer or whatever. But whether I'm full-timing or just on vacation or whatever, that is my home, and that I have the same rights in my motor home or my travel trailer as I have in a freaking motor home, right?
If you're on the move,
I think it's different. I think those provide if they're like stationary. Yeah, I remember seeing this too, and I can't remember. That story has come up. If it's on the road, and it's
every circumstance is different, right?
They actually had a thing on Breaking Bad where Hank, the DEA agent, wanted to search the RV, and Walt was sitting there feeding Jesse the whole, "This is my domicile. I will not be harassed. Come back for more."
It was like in the first season.
Well, I do know that there are like the open container law is waived for RVs because I mean you can have people partying in the back, and as long
while
as
you're driving.
Yes.
Yeah, because it's separate.
Because it's a home,
Yeah.
and it's different. So even the open container law doesn't apply to RVs.
Yeah, it's a.
A lot of it depends on how you're.
Yeah, I didn't expect that question.
No, they're all open. I've never seen an RV that was closed.
Okay.
I think it's almost.
Okay, we're almost done.
Not the Right. That's it. It has to be outside the cabin.
Starts at 6.
Yes.
We have maybe 15 minutes. Does it work?
Yeah, but I mean, there's another seat
Yeah,
right
we got
here.
about 10 minutes till 5:30.
10 minutes, 5, 10, 15.
Would you have to?
About like 5.
5?
Yeah. 5.
Okay. Let's I think that we understand most of like the searches and all this stuff. Let's go into filing a complaint. When you can file a complaint, who you file a complaint through. Is that probably the most important thing to get to in the last 5 minutes?
What else do we have to get to? I can't remember.
Community
options. Community is. You have a slide set. See what's on there. Just go through it. Let's see.
That's a criminal complaint.
If you're arrested, don't resist. It's important. Immigrants.
Don't run away. It's really bad.
Oh yeah. So these are all internal affairs, filing a complaint, oversight boards.
What else is on there? This is pretty
good.
Interesting stuff.
And then most of the immunity stuff is pretty boring. Yeah.
Let's get that. Yeah.
Review.
Oh.
We can talk. Let's talk briefly about that. Next slide, real quick, and then maybe.
Let's do that.
If you want to file a civil lawsuit because of like excessive force or something else, well, I mean here are the constitutional violations that are actionable in a civil lawsuit in civil court. So the right to remain silent is not. Search without consent is probably not actionable. Right to counsel is probably not actionable. False arrest, maybe excessive use of force is actionable. And the right to free speech, like the right to protest, is actionable. So you can bring a case against the government for those two.
And actually, I say something about the right to counsel. For a lot of crimes, it's if you have the right to competent counsel.
Yeah.
And there have been there are some cases in the courts right now where there's
recent cases,
challenges about whether or not.
Yeah. Yeah, and that's something that people look at too. Yeah. Recently, I've seen that. I don't know where.
Like, do you mean like effective assistance of counsel? Yeah.
Yeah, because I'm sorry, my area is the death penalty, and we've had cases where the attorney has slept through the trial, and the defense attorney, and then the guy was still convicted and given the
that's still
death penalty.
I'm not sure.
I know they still gave him counsel, but
right, and that's
But I'm just saying that be aware that if they just give you a total idiot, because there are some out there, you have the right to.
And there's a whole slew of law about ineffective assistance of counsel, and it's a pretty tough test. But sometimes if you can show that you had an incompetent attorney, then can sometimes get a do-over.
And I think that that deals with like criminal court issues, like getting a motion for new trial or something like that. This is talking about civil lawsuits, so this is for like getting damages or something like that.
Yeah, so this means that if you're beaten up, if your right to free speech is suppressed, and maybe if you're false arrested, and maybe if you're searched without consent, you can sue for damages against them. But if your right to counsel is violated, or your right to remain silent is violated, and some searches without a consent are violated, the remedy is going to be more in your criminal proceeding. You're going to throw out some evidence, they can't use it, but you can't turn around and sue them in that instance.
So this slide is just explaining where we come in. You know, when you sue the government for like money or something else, or an injunction or something. Usually it's just use of force and right to free speech. Right to remain silence. You can't come to us, and we can't file a case against the government for monetary damages or something like that.
Which is unfortunate because some of that stuff seems like pretty serious offenses. Do we have any time left?
I'm probably going to be wrapping up in like a few minutes. We have to count everything.
Okay.
Just like to thank Texas Civil Rights Project Houston for joining us. Thanks to the Eastside Children's Center for providing us a space and help to see more people and you guys and partner with y'all in more Peaceful Streets Project Houston events. And if for any people that aren't really aware of what PSP Houston does or the Peaceful Streets in general, it's basically an activist organization, apolitical. It gets involved in empowering communities and individuals through knowing rights training, such as these police complaint departments, and we also do the notorious cop watches and so forth. And this is the Houston chapter, so we're looking to build and get more networking done, more organizations, and so on. So
yeah, this is great because it's good to have this kind of base because we're certainly willing to help you guys out with whatever.